The horse-drawn barges on the Lagan Canal carried goods from Belfast to Lough Neagh from 1760 till 1960. This is the Red Bridge over the River Lagan, with the navigation canal on the left-hand side. And this is number 3 lock. This is the lockkeeper's cottage at number 3 lock, which was known as New Forge Ormond-Leaves. From 1922 till 1968, George Kilpatrick was the lockkeeper. This is George opening the sluice to let the water out of the lock. At the side of the house was a large garden, and George grew vegetables. He kept goats, chickens and pigs. With no electricity or running water in the house, George was kept very busy collecting firewood to heat the house and to cook with. Number 3 lock with New Forge food factory in the background. As well as maintaining the lock, George would look after the weir, which was up near Shaw's Bridge. After the Blitz in Belfast, the bomb debris from the houses was brought up here and built the Burma Road. New Forge food factory with the little gate lodge on the right hand side. When the gate lodge was no longer needed, George acquired it. It gave him extra storage space outside his house. His shop was on the left hand side. A photograph of some members of the family and friends in the 1970s. George's daughter, Dorothy, with her pet calf and her little niece. The girls again on the arm of the lock gates. George feeding his goats on the bridge. In 1963, with very few barges going up and down the river, George's duties changed and he now was caretaker and had to maintain the towpath and the banks. In George's shop there was always a cup of tea and a chat. This is George's youngest son Stanley, who was the last family member to live in the house. In 2007, renovation began to the cottage, the bridge and the surrounding area. This is the tea rooms. And digging out the canal basin. And sometimes the workmen came across an eel. Today, Dorothy Mc Bride, one of George's daughters, is visiting the house. It brings back many happy memories. The main room, where the cooking was done, had a table and chairs. In the back room, George and his wife Sarah slept, and all 10 children were born in this room. A fold-away stair took you up to the 2 bedrooms. Each of the rooms had 2 double beds and all 10 children slept here. Dorothy still has some items from the old house. Including the 2 oil lamps which give them light during the long winter months. Hello, we've just been looking at photos of number 3 lock at New Forge called McLeave's and the lock house. The last lock keeper there was George Kirkpatrick, who lived in the lock house from 1922 to 1968. George's father was a lock keeper, and 3 of George's brothers were lock keepers. And today we're with George's daughter, Dorothy Mc Bride. And Dorothy will tell us her memories of being a lock keeper's daughter on the River Lagan. Well, Dorothy, how many children were living in that little house?
There was 10 children
Uh-huh.
with my mother and father.
Uh-huh. And that would have been, when was the first one? When would the first one have been born, roughly?
I'm sorry, I can't even answer that yet. No.
And what was, there was 6?
There were 6 girls and 4 boys.
Uh-huh.
And I'm the second youngest.
Uh-huh.
And we were all born in that house in the one room in the downstairs.
In the back room downstairs, from I saw the photographs of it. Uh-huh.
Room downstairs.
With the big fire.
With the fire. And as I say, I remember my older sisters were always there. They would have moved on and got married as I grew up.
Uh-huh.
But to tell you, I couldn't really tell you the dates because I'm not very good with dates.
And what date were you born, Dorothy? If you were born in the house as well?
1937.
37. All of you were born in that back
Yes.
room.
And 37, and then the second youngest.
Uh-huh.
In that house.
Uh-huh. And then the front room now, it was really your main meeting room where you'd eat.
Well, there's a kitchen, as they called it.
Uh-huh. And you had the big fire there.
The
with
big fire there.
The
The table and the sofa.
the kettle and the
The kettle.
hobs. And,
Everything was there for the cooking.
uh-huh.
And there was the table for eating, there was a sofa, there was chairs. My father used to lie on the sofa, come in and have his rest on the sofa.
Uh-huh.
The wee bedroom was my mother and father's where we were all born.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 attic rooms upstairs when as you got older. There was 2 beds in the back room and 2 beds in the front room. One for the girls and one for the boys.
Up the little steps.
Yeah, up the stairs.
And they were taken away the stairs, presumably. They were
taken down.
yes, taken down.
They were built, it was built that the stairs went up through the day and taken down at night.
Mm-hmm.
So as you go up to bed. You wouldn't have known they were there, it went against the wall.
Yeah.
Like it was closed in ladder really.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so that was the where we went up to bed.
Uh-huh.
And it was just the wee attic rooms with the sloping roofs. Very cold in the winter.
And you were fairly self-sufficient there, for your daddy had the goats.
We had to be.
Uh-huh. And then you had the gardens there where you had presumably you had potatoes and...
He grew every vegetable and every fruit that he could.
Uh-huh.
He even had a greenhouse.
And that would have been down the front of the house, down
That
towards
was
the Red
down
Bridge.
to the Red Bridge.
That was all
On the side of the Lagan.
vegetable gardens. And,
Vegetable garden, fruit bushes. My mother's line for her clothes would have been at the side of it. And right down he would have had everything, potatoes, cabbages, turnips, carrots. He grew everything and he had a greenhouse. In later years he had a greenhouse and he would have grew grapes and things like that.
uh-huh. And the little really it's like a sweet shop selling Coca-Cola and so on at the side of
At
the
the
house,
side of the
between
house.
it and the locks, between the house and the locks there. Would you sold some of the garden vegetables there too?
No, I never saw that happening
No,
now.
no.
People would have, yes, my father would have given vegetables
Yes,
away to
yes,
people.
yes.
Because you know what lettuces are like.
Yes.
There's always too many and they would have given them
That's right.
to people, you know, come along and say, do you want a few leeks or a few vegetables?
Yes.
Never sold them that I can remember.
No.
was able to give them away to people. He used to do, what he used to do, and I'd forgotten about it until now, was he had these flowers, and they were called everlasting at that time. They looked everlasting, and people would have brought their bowls to him, and he would have put, you know, moss and stuff in the bowls,
moss and stuff like
wired these flowers for everlasting, like a display for people's. There were a lot of people from Malone Road who brought their bowls. In fact, that bowl there is one that came and nobody ever collected. I still have it. So that's a long time ago. But these flowers were put in. There was different goldy coloured ones, white ones and things, and then he would have sold them. Because it took a bit of time.
Yeah.
Because you had to collect the moss and all, and put the wires up and things like that.
Well, presumably you had plenty of time to do that, because there's no electric or no running water in the house.
No, you had always loads of time.
The
time didn't come into things. You know, you get up and you get on with everything.
There's no television then.
No.
You had a radio. You could listen to the radio.
We had a radio that went by a car battery.
Yes, yes.
I can remember it because we used to charge it. People at the factory would have charged it for it.
That's it.
And my mother would listen to the McCooeys, and I remember listening to the McCooeys, and what do you call Mrs. Dale's Diary?
Mrs. Dale's Diary with Jessie Matthews then. One of my favourites, old Jessie Matthews.
You daren't have spoke when that was on, because that was really, and my mother read a lot.
Yes.
Because I do too, funny.
And then when it got dark, did you just go to bed then?
My mother probably went to bed very early because they were up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
What sort of lighting had you there?
Lamps. There's a lamp in there. And a lamp up there. Lamps. One sat in the middle of the table, and we all had lamps. There was lamps in the bedrooms. And well, eyesight must have been very good then, because I can remember reading all sorts of things.
It was nearly dark outside.
Yeah, with the lamp.
With the light of the lamp.
What a big light.
I know.
But like my mother would have read. She read, because she went to bed and would have read. Because they went to bed, they were in bed in the winter time at 7 o'clock.
But was your mother and father not worried about you when you were younger with water?
That was torment. He was forever at you and watching you all the time.
Keep away from the water.
Keep away from the water, because he had to take out a lot of people who drowned.
Is that right?
And one wee boy in particular drowned in the locks.
Was that the locks just your own locks, number 3 locks?
One wet Saturday. Myself and my sister and a couple of chums we were allowed to go to the pictures on the Lisburn Road. Yes. Called the Pictures Cinema now.
Is that the Majestic you went to?
Majestic was the
Majestic,
Went there, and when we come back, this had happened, and one of the girls that was with us was her brother.
Oh dear.
And a wee fella had been going along, apparently, you know the way they used to put a wee wheel on a wire?
That's right, like a wee,
It must have went over and he went in after. Now my father had to pull him out, so it was more preaching.
About keeping away.
Keeping away, because we didn't swim.
No, but I'm sure you all fell in from time to time.
We all fell in. I fell in lifting a can of water out one day, and how I got out I don't know, but nobody knew it had happened. My brother that lived there the last, Stanley, he was actually rescued from the Lagan under the Red Bridge by an artist who was painting. And he hauled him out and he saved his life. Otherwise he was gone, because the river wasn't flooded at the time.
Yeah.
And my brother Ernie, the one that lives in Lisburn Road, apparently he was born with a cowl.
Right.
And he fell in and didn't drown, and he was in quite a while.
That's right.
So this is what they say. Whether it's all gospel, I don't know.
But it's been handed down.
That's what we were told.
It's been handed down anyway. Well, then you went to school.
We went to Ballylesson School. We walked up the lane and then up the Milltown Village there and along the Ballylesson Road to Ballylesson School. It was quite a walk.
Would be.
Yeah.
And then after Ballylesson.
Well, I left school at 14.
You left school then. And
in fact, we all left school at 14, I think.
And in the little shop now that your dad had, was it busy? Was there a lot of people going up and down?
See, the weekends, you never got a minute's peace. I hated it. Because the shop was right beside the front door, and like people were coming down, and people walked in those days. Well, there's no choice, there wasn't cars and things. They walked and cycled.
And we saw the photograph of the inside of the shop now. A lot of pictures up in the wall. And then they had Coca-Cola and what way they had sweets, was it?
It was bottled sweets. What they had. The bottled sweets and the counter, and they had lovely tables where people could have sat and had their lemonade and things like. There was lots of sweets, chocolate, cigarettes, things like that.
And how did the suppliers get down to him there?
Down the lane from Milltown.
From Milltown down, the easy access that way, so they had. And then later on, as you get older and your sister got older, what about boyfriends and girlfriends?
Oh, well, there was always plenty of them. At the weekend, there was always lads about, and we were sat out on the bridge, and the fella would give off, like.
Sitting on the bridge below the town.
Talking about everything and everything. Some fellas were very brave because I had to walk us home and it was dark and down there. No, at the time.
So if you're at the Majestic or somewhere like that, you had a right wee bit to...
You walked the whole way. There was you didn't take buses or anything.
No.
So there were brave lads that kept it up, you know.
They'd have to put good intentions.
Well, they had good intentions in those days, my father.
They weren't just out for a good night out. So
times were different. They really were different.
And what about then? All the cooking was done in that front room with a big fire?
Yes, my mother had her big kettle on the side. It was always on the side of the fire. There was always a pot with either porridge, soup, stew, and in the morning she baked every morning. She baked soda bread, potato bread, some wheaten bread, all those things. She would have done them. And that was done before we got out of our bed.
Well, then during the war there'd be shortages. How did you fare then?
I was very young at the time. I don't remember going short of anything.
Is that right?
Because my father must have still had his.
And then you had Newforge there.
The Newforge there, and there probably was shortages, but I don't really remember that much.
Well, during the Blitz, were they worried about Newforge?
Oh yes, you had to be aware all the time that there is a factory there.
That's right.
And because they would have made food stuffs probably for the troops and things.
But you wouldn't have been evacuated or anything like that?
Well, I remember only once being evacuated. We were evacuated, I think, a few times. Well, we were out of the time of floods. But the time it was an air raid, I remember it, I must have been about 4 or maybe 5, that taking up that lane and crying because whoever was carrying me had put my Wellington boots on the wrong feet. Now that's vivid. That's about the only thing I can remember about. I remember the siren going, but I'm being carried up and crying and given off because somebody put the boots in the wrong feet. Imagine, because I was very young.
It was a big deal when you're young, I suppose.
But that's the only time I remember. But it doesn't mean that I wasn't out. We weren't out before. That's the only time because it concerned me.
Well, what about your dad? What time would he have to go out? Would George have to go out for the lighters or the barges coming
they
up?
always knew when they were coming. I often wondered because there was no telephones.
No, but it's at times like buses today, had they?
There was times they seemed to know, the lockkeepers communicated with each other. And my father would have rode his bicycle down to the second lock or up to Edenderry. And they knew exactly when these boats were coming through. Often, I really didn't think much about it, but they seemed to know what was going on.
And would some of them be early in the morning and some of them
Some
late
had been
at
in the
night?
morning, some in the afternoon. And my mother, you'd have heard my mother saying, better get the dinner over, there's going to be a barge coming through.
And they came up full and
went down
virtually mostly empty. I don't think they had much to carry on the way down, And what about yourself with the horses and so on?
The horses were always let free just to graze, where we were there. You didn't bother much with them, we were used with them. They were fed, they used to throw their nose bag over there. And they would have grazed as well, They were very good to their horses. Because that was part of them.
Well, would you have known the lighter men, like your dad would obviously know them all by first name terms and could ask about their personal life, would you have been familiar?
Oh, we used to talk to them and get in the way. We'd have got in the way and were real gentlemen, I have to say. I never come across men like them because they were so respectful to my mother and to us. After would have give you a chase and told you where to go very quickly if you got in the way, but they were nice men. They really
but they're rough
and ready, and they were brown as berries because they were out all the time. But real nice men. I can remember them, a lot of them, their faces, and they were all looked as if they were old, and they probably weren't old.
I know, they're just withered.
Just withered with the
because they're out
weather.
leading their horses up.
Well, there was a man who led the horses. He was different to the ones on the barge. But they had their wee cabins and that's how they lived. How did they live now?
And their families were on the barges, their wives and children were on the barges.
Now, I only remember the one family. I think that the time I was on the go, there wasn't too many families, but I do remember one woman who wore big long black skirt, and she was as brown, she was as black as a a blackberry.
Uh-huh.
Because and her hair tied back in it and all, but they can't have been easy.
Had you any names for them? Had the nicknames for them or anything?
My father would have known their nickname. I can't remember any nicknames really.
And did you get on the lighters? Did you get on the wee boats to go up to
We would have been allowed
Drum or
occasionally.
Edenderry or
Yeah,
anywhere?
occasionally we were allowed to go to Edenderry in the summertime, maybe for a run, and we had to make sure my brother or somebody was with us. The girls weren't allowed to go alone.
No.
It was always, you were always kept a tight hand along the towpath.
And they've been carrying what, coal mostly?
Mostly coal. They would have seen, sometimes you would have seen a lot of wood going up, you
That'd
know.
be up to John Shaw Brown.
Yeah, Johnson Brown, places like that. But coal was the main thing I remember. Because my father would have got so much coal, he was allowed so much coal off the boats for the fire because he had small wages. That was part of the perks. He would have got a big lump of coal that was cut up for our fire.
And your father then, he was a lockkeeper right up to, what would that have been, the 50s?
The 50s, he was the last lockkeeper there.
Because that time the boats, there was no need for the boats at that stage. Or
Like there was very few for a good many years before that. There was only a few going through, and then all you saw was the navigation men with the repair boats keeping the banks clear and things like that. And they used to come and sit in the shop and drink drink tea mostly, and mother made the tea.
The thick black tea, I'm sure they
Oh,
liked.
these tins, you know.
Billy cans.
Lovely men, honest to goodness, every time I think about them. I think about them regular. Because
Well, it was a big part of your life then.
it was
so
part
it
of
was.
our life, and it was lovely to see them because
And I think as you get older, you're flat back.
you're flipped
anyway,
back,
and
and
what
as they say, the sun seemed to shine all the time.
That's right.
Didn't, but it
But I'm
seemed
sure
to.
it didn't. But we're sure the river, sometimes the Lagan and the canal overflowed.
Oh yes, we were out of there. Now I remember a couple of times there was a shop down in Milltown, Patterson's shop, and we had been taken to them. My mother and father never left the house. We were taken.
The children were.
The children were taken away and kept there. In fact, I was talking to the Clifford, the son of the house, he still lives there. I was talking about it. He says he can remember. He's older than me, so he can remember the times. He says, he used to see your Wellington boots all coming out in the rivers and flooding. It's only been for a couple of days, so it'll go down. You know.
Well, some of the very good pictures we've been looking at, one with your dad, George, on the little humpback bridge with his goats there. So he obviously liked the goats.
Oh, he loved the goats.
And you had the goat's milk, a bit like Randy Monaghan and his goat's milk.
Goat's milk. Now people would have come and ask him for goat's milk and things, but you
I think
know,
I never tasted.
it's a very strong milk.
Is it?
Very strong. I didn't like it now.
No,
My mother and
no.
father liked it.
But you had that. You hadn't cow's milk. It was all goat's milk.
No, we
was
had
it?
a bar milk. There was a milkman.
So you'd have bought
We would have bought
cow's
milk.
milk for your tea and so on, presumably.
But my father put it all in their porridge and stuff, you know, things like that. I would not have been, still not keen on that to do.
No.
And the goats would have dumped you. We were a bit dilatory around the goats.
If you got the wrong side of them,
Yeah.
their horns there, you know.
They would have been, could have been bad-tempered things like.
Okay. Well, did you take an interest in the garden yourself at that stage?
Not really, except when the berries were all out, the gooseberries and all, we did go and pinch them and the peas. Remember the lovely peas? I opened them up and used to pinch them and get shouted at for that.
And then what was directly around the back of your house?
Well, there was a shed there where you had pigs.
Yes.
There was a shed to the side, a shed to the back where there was pigs.
And what were the pigs for now? Did you just keep them or did
They
you?
were sold. He reared them, I suppose, it's for fattened them up and sold them. He didn't kill them now,
No.
but they were sold. It was part of our livelihood, you know. And he had bullocks, not milk cattle.
Quite a
He
few
did, and they
animals
had
then for
hens.
you. You immediately think that's not a big area there when
It's
you
not
look at
big.
when you look at the lockkeeper's house.
Well,
you
there'd have
think
been
it's-
plenty room for pigs, like.
Yeah.
But the cattle would have been grazed, and a field up like the like of Milliburn there. He used
Aye.
to rent. Now, who from I don't remember. They were, rented it for a while for the fat and the cattle. It was his way of making extra money.
That's good.
So.
And what do you think now, Dorothy, when you go back and look at the house now, and you know that it's going to be preserved
Oh, I think it's
for
great.
all time?
I thought sure it was going to get fall to the ground. Nobody was going to bother with it because of the way the
Because
difficulties.
you had problems where you owned the house, but you weren't able to sell it
No, because of the right of way.
because of right
And
away,
people can't.
and
really-
you had problems with the law in that
Yeah.
case.
You had to be careful what you were doing there, and I thought it's never going to go. And then suddenly the council come on the scene, but then for a while they dillied and dallied, and it was a long time before they bought it. I thought sure they would never get round to doing it. Then they come back again. I'd give up on it. And they called me one and said that now I had decided. Somebody had went against it, you know what councillors are like. And then it was dropped for a while, and then suddenly it was decided it would be a good idea. And I was so glad, because they can overcome all obstacles. They can get through what I couldn't have got through.
So they'll be relying on you now to tell them through some of your photographs and other things as to how it was set out and how it was painted.
Yeah,
because a lot of those attachments that are in the, we've looked at the photographs now that I took of the inside of the cottage, and a lot of those bits weren't there.
No.
A lot of those little bookcases and so on.
No, that wasn't there.
Later on.
My brother, those people that was there, the greyhounds, I think they must have done a bit of things
they
like that.
They came in after your brother left?
Yes. And they would have done things. No, they didn't come into the house.
Oh, right.
No, but Stanley was very friendly with one of them, Jackie, who's dead now, and he would have fixed things for my brother.
Yes.
I think he was the one who blocked in the fire for him.
Yes.
Stanley would have been a bit frugal where his money was concerned,
right.
and would have wanted not to use as much fuel.
Right.
And had I don't even know how he done it, because he was a very private man. And even though I had to look after him when he was ill, he wouldn't have let you interfere.
No. But you'll be able to advise the council obviously on how it was in your day, and they'll be able to put it back.
Very simply. It was very simply furnished. It wasn't a room for a lot of furniture. I don't know how, I think of it now, and how did we survive? But it was, I remember a very happy childhood.
Yes, you had a really good time. Well, it'd be nice to look back, to go back in say 6 months' time, Dorothy, and
I'm really looking forward to it.
It'll all be back to what it was.
And I'm hoping in the next month I'll be able to see it, you know. I wonder, I don't even know if it started the house yet.
Well, the last time I was down now, which was after that day that I met yourself at the house, it was all locked up. And
nobody had been working on it. It's the last thing they're doing, apparently. But that day I was telling you about meeting the man who had my sister as a sweetheart. And
he was just passing by.
He was passing by. He walks every day, and he's over 80. And he wanted to talk to me, and then he got a bit shaky because I think he got very emotional.
Yes.
Because he says, I loved your sister, but you didn't love me. And then the tears starting to come. Because that particular sister, she was a pretty girl, you know. And he says, I just loved her. He says, now I'm married and I love my wife, but I loved her then, you know.
So he had done his curtain with your sister at the little lockkeeper's house?
And she used to pinch a packet of cigarettes for him, he told me.
Will's
I said,
was that Will's
goodness, my father would have had a heart attack and he'd go.
And the man told you that?
Yes.
That was your sister's boyfriend?
I didn't know at all that man.
No.
You know, I told me his name, but because it was so fussy that day, I didn't get his name. But I think the girls in the council maybe will get it off him. Because he had a head of hair, lovely head of hair yet. But he says, I loved her. And I says, oh my goodness.
And he was in tears.
He was in tears. When I started to talk to him about it, you say, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't remember because I was only 12 when she died. So look, when he was going with her, I was younger again. And they had plenty of boyfriends because they were good looking girls.
Yes.
And he says, I know she died young. I says, well, she was 28. And he says, I just loved her. Not that I didn't love my wife, I laughed at that. His wife's dead.
That girl now, your sister that died at 28, was she in the house then? She moved out?
Oh no, she was married, she had 3 children.
Yes, she was married at that stage.
Yes, and lived in the house just up a bit. There was a house just halfway, not even halfway up the lane.
Right.
It used to be a wee house, it was a wee cottage, and she lived there. Her youngest was a year old when she died. We reared him as well. Oh no, she was married and had 3 children.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I'm sure it's some great tales to tell. There's
that many that sometimes I have to think about it,
I know. Well, Dorothy, that was great. Thank you very much for remembering all those stories. At least we'll have it on record now. But I'm sure we'll be.
My memory.
I'm sure
it's all right.
Oh, we'll be back again. I'm sure in a week or two to get some more reminiscences of you.
Sometimes as life goes on, life back when then seemed more rosy than maybe what it was. You know?
Well, the summers seemed better,
Yeah,
and
the winters
people
were rough.
seemed to be better too.
People were better. There wasn't the badness about.
No.
Like everybody seemed to look after each other.
That's right. There's more of a camaraderie
Yeah.
then, and everybody helped one another.
Yeah.
You know, it was like that. You had the time of a blitz or anything like that. People all band together. You know.
Our wee door never was closed. People just come in.
That's right.
You know, and my mother would have said, "Do you want a wee cup of tea in your hand?" I remember the traveller salesman for the lemonade company, McClellan's, it was called, and said, "Oh no," he says, "Mr. Kilpatrick, might burn me if you put it in my hand." And I get the cup. He used to joke with her, you know, because she had the teapot on for no matter who came about.
Wee cup of tea.
A cup of tea and a bit of soda bread that was baked by herself. Hard-working woman.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much again, Dorothy, for having me in and giving me this little insight into what your life was like in those days. Thank you very much indeed, Dorothy. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Would you like a cup of tea?
Oh, I'd love a wee cup of tea.
Tea or coffee?
Tea, Dorothy,
Yeah, I
please.
like tea too.